Next part of our lesson is structure of human eye. Eyes are a pair of sense organs for vision. Eyes are located in the orbits of skull with a cushion of fat around them. The eyes are protected by bones, eyebrows, upper and lower eyelids with eyelashes, and tear glands, or also called as the lacrimal glands. Movement of eyeball within the orbit is controlled by 6 sets of muscles. The labels of the eyeball. This is the label which you have to make while drawing the diagram. The outermost layer, the choroid. Middle layer, the sclera. Innermost layer, the retina. Conjunctiva, outermost transparent covering of the eyeball. The iris, colored part of the eyeball. The pupil, the aperture in front of the eyeball. Macula lutea, the golden yellow spot on the retina. Blind spot, again the point of retina from where the optic nerve leaves. The optic nerve itself. The vitreous humor. Vitreous humor, the anterior as well as posterior chambers are there. The posterior chamber of the eyeball is larger. It is called vitreous chamber, which is filled with a jelly like a vitreous humor. Humor means fluid. And we have the lens coming. These are the labels which you have to make while drawing the diagram. It's a very important diagram. The orbit, sockets in the skull in which eyes are lodged. Protection of the eye by bones, by eyebrows, eyelids, eyelashes, lacrimal gland or tear glands. The 6 sets of muscles are shown here in the diagram, with which the eyeball is connected to the orbit so that the eyeball can be moved around. The name of the 6 sets of muscle, they are called as rectus muscles as well as oblique muscles. You don't have to learn the name of the muscles, but remember that the number of muscles that helps in the movement of eyeball are 6 sets. Then, eyeball is made up of 3 layers. Sclera, the outermost layer. Choroid, the middle layer. Retina, the innermost layer. Here in the diagram also the 3 layers are labeled. Sclera, then choroid in red color and retina in green color. 3 layers. Sclera. Sclera is the outermost layer of the eyeball. It is made up of dense fibroelastic connective tissue with the collagen fibers, provides attachment to eyeball muscles. The anterior thick transparent bulged out part of sclera is called cornea. Towards the anterior side the sclera is bulged out. It is called as cornea, and the cornea is covered with a transparent membrane called as conjunctiva. We can see the 2 labels coming. The cornea, the anterior bulged out portion of the sclera, and the conjunctiva is the outermost transparent membrane covering the eyeball. Sclera is provided with blood vessels, but the cornea is devoid of them. There are no blood vessels to the cornea. Cornea is nourished by aqueous humor and secretions of lacrimal glands. Cornea is covered by a protective transparent covering called conjunctiva, which provides protection and lubrication to the cornea. We have many parts of the middle layer or the choroid layer coming. The choroid is the second layer of the eyeball. The anterior portion of the choroid layer is thick and it is called ciliary body. From the ciliary body there arises ligaments to which eye lens is attached. The pupil, the aperture left by the ciliary body is called as a pupil, and the forward portion of the ciliary body is called as the iris. Iris is the forward portion of the ciliary body, and the iris leaves a small aperture called as a pupil. Choroid is the second layer of eyeball. This incomplete layer is divided into 3 regions. Choroid proper, the ciliary body, the anterior thick portion of the choroid layer is called as the ciliary body, and the iris, forward portion of the ciliary body is called as the iris. Choroid proper lines the sclera. The pigmented nature of this part prevents internal reflection. Choroid is pigmented layer, and it is pigmented so that it will be able to prevent the internal reflection of light. Blood vessels of choroid provide nutrition and oxygen to retina. Ciliary body is the anterior thick muscular ring-like part of the choroid. It is a thick part of the choroid, but it is anterior. Epithelium secretes aqueous humor. Attached to the ciliary body are suspensory ligaments which holds the lens. The ligaments and the muscles of the ciliary body help in the adjustment of the size of lens. The iris. Iris is the forward segment of ciliary body which is pigmented and opaque. Iris is visible colored portion of the eye. Color of the eye is the color of the iris. It is perforated. Iris leaves a narrow opening, aperture called as a pupil. Smooth muscles of the iris helps in regulating the size of pupil depending upon the intensity of light. For example, if you enter into a room with a bright light, the iris will constrict and the pupil will constrict. And if you enter into a room with a dim light, the pupil will dilate. The dilation and constriction of the pupil is due to the contraction as well as relaxation of the iris as well as muscles of the ciliary body. Now these two parts are shown. The lens, aqueous chamber. The lens divides the eyeball into two chambers. Anterior chamber is called aqueous chamber and posterior chamber is called as vitreous chamber. Aqueous chamber is filled with a watery fluid. Called as aqueous humor, while the posterior vitreous chamber contains viscous vitreous fluid. Lens, it is transparent, elastic, biconvex structure suspended in the eyeball by suspensory ligaments. The lens and suspensory ligaments divide the cavity of eyeball into two chambers. As we have seen, anterior chamber is called as aqueous chamber with a watery fluid. Posterior chamber is called as vitreous chamber with a viscous jelly-like fluid. Posterior chamber is filled with jelly-like vitreous humor. Humor means fluid. Both aqueous humor and vitreous humor maintain the pressure of the eyeball as well as it helps to keep the eye lens in position. Both the liquid or the fluid, we say, it helps to maintain the pressure of the eyeball. They also helps the lens, keeping the lens in position. Retina. Retina is the innermost delicate non-vascular light sensitive layer, non-vascular, no blood supply. It has two regions, single layer of pigmented non-sensory region and a sensory region. Remember that retina shows two regions, a sensory region and a non-sensory region. Sensory region shows outer pigmented part and inner nervous part. Retina shows two regions, sensory region and non-sensory region. Sensory region has got an outer pigmented part and an inner nervous part. See in the diagram. Retina, two parts, outer pigmented part and inner nervous part. The nervous part is transparent and it is made up of three sublayers. Nervous part has got three sublayers. The photosensitive layer made up of rod and cone cells. The middle layer made up of bipolar nerve cells. Inner layer of ganglion cells. This is about the nervous part of the retina. Outer, it has got three sublayers, a photosensitive layer, a bipolar layer and a ganglion layer of cells. The nerve fibers from the basal end of the ganglion cells collectively form the optic nerve. All the nerve fibers from the ganglion cells joins together and forms the optic nerve. We can see the details of this. Sclera, the choroid, the pigmented epithelium, the rod cells, cone cells, the bipolar layer, and of course we have the ganglion layer. All the layers are shown very clearly here in this. The photoreceptor cells of the eyeball are of two types, rods and cones. Rods, rod-shaped cells, cones, cone-shaped cells. Rod function in dim light, cones responsible for vision in bright light as well as color vision. The purple red protein called rhodopsin is present in the rod cells, which is a derivative of vitamin A, while iodopsin is a pigment present in cone cells. Rhodopsin is the main pigment present in rod cells, and rhodopsin is a derivative of vitamin A. That is why deficiency of vitamin A causes night blindness, that is no vision in dim light. Means so vitamin A is essential for the formation of rhodopsin, and rhodopsin is essential for the vision at a dim light. That is the relation between vitamin A and vision at a dim light. Now come back to cones. The cones are of three types. They respond to red light, blue light, and the green light. See, the cells are given very clearly. Photoreceptor cells, two types, rods and cones. Rods are rod shaped, cones are cone shaped. Rod for dim light and cones for color light. And cones are green colored, red colored, and blue colored. That means they are sensitive to green color, some are sensitive to red color, and some are sensitive to blue colored light. Again, the diagram is shown for better understanding. Photoreceptor cells, cone cells, and the rod cells, light sensitive cells. Then the sensation of white light is produced due to the simultaneous equal sensation of red, green, and blue lights. Blue cone cells. The sensation of white light is produced due to the simultaneous equal sensation of red, green, and blue cone cells. The optic nerve consists of fibers arising from the base of ganglion cells, which leaves the eye from the median posterior part of the eye. That means from the median posterior part of the eye, the optic nerve leaves. The rods and cones are absent in the region it is known as blind spot. That is, there are no photosensitive cells at the point of origin of optic nerve, and there is no vision, so it is called as a blind spot. Just above the blind spot there is an yellowish spot. That yellowish spot is called macula lutea. Macula lutea has got a small pit or a depression called as fovea. Remember one point, the pupil is diametrically opposite to the fovea. Light coming from an object passes through the pupil and directly falls on the fovea for better vision. Now the diagram shows the macula lutea, the yellowish spot with the fovea, and we have the blind spot, the point of origin of optic nerve. Generation of image. Light rays from an object passes through the conjunctiva, cornea, passes through pupil, upon the lens, and is focused on the retina to form an image. Light coming from an object has to pass through the conjunctiva, pass through the cornea, aqueous humor, passes through the pupil, lens, vitreous humor, and finally falls onto the retina. In the visual area of cerebrum, the nerve impulses are analyzed and the image formed is recognized. There is a flow chart coming how the image is formed. Mechanism of vision. When light falls on the retina, changes in the retina when light falls on it. Light falls on rod cells and cone cells of retina. Breaking up of the light sensitive pigments by specific wavelengths of light. Then simultaneous stimulation of rod and cone cells and generation of nerve impulse. The nerve impulse transmitted to bipolar nerve cells, transmitted to ganglion cells. Nerve impulse of the axon of ganglion cell converge and leave via the optic nerve. Nerve impulse transmitted by the optic nerve to the brain, and perception of image by brain cells. That is, light rays coming from the object has to fall onto the retina. Due to that, the cells of the retina, photosensitive cells, simultaneously both rod cells and cone cells are activated. When they get activated, they undergo some chemical changes. Due to the chemical changes, there will be the development of a potential difference. Due to the potential difference, there will be development of an action potential. Those action potential passes through bipolar cells, then through the ganglional cells, and finally reaches into the optic nerve. Through optic nerve, it reaches into the visual areas of cerebrum. Over there, the image is perceived. This is the mechanism of vision. We have the diagram coming again, the labels which you have to make. This is repeated because it's a very important diagram. The choroid layer, the sclera, the retina, the conjunctiva, the iris, the pupil, the macula lutea, blind spot, optic nerve, vitreous humor, and of course the lens. These are the various labels which you have to make while drawing the diagram. Thank you.